I can't wait to throw a curveball to my fellow Swaay.Health colleagues on this video. You see, normally I'm the one that's sharing what emoji I would pick to represent a conference, but this time I'm going to pose that question to Brittany and to John. You see, we recently wrapped up our annual Swaay.Health live event in Foxborough, and I wanted to get their reactions here on camera. I can't wait for you to hear what emojis they pick. And oh, you're going to want to stick around to hear my second curveball when I ask both of them on the spur of the moment for what we can do better at our event next year. Let's get to it.
Swaay.Health.
Brittany, John, welcome to the program. And first question right away, have you both recovered from Swaay.Health Live 2026?
Probably not. I went to 4 conferences in 3 cities the next week, so I'm still recovering, I think.
And Brittany, did you sleep on your way home from the flight?
I did not. No.
She was
So
too
I
hyped
don't
up.
think I'm recovered, but I think, in a couple of days it'll all come back to normal.
I think it takes every year it takes longer and longer to recover from Swaay.Health Live. At least for me too.
That just means we're getting older, right, Colin? Is that
that's pretty much what it is. It's we're getting older, but no, I mean, it was a lot of fun, being in Foxborough with everyone. I think it was one of our largest ones, and certainly, the amount of comments and posts and things on LinkedIn have been very positive. So thank you to all of you out there who have been posting your reactions and your recaps of the conference. But since I have the both of you online here, I got to ask you, what stood out for both of you from this year's Swaay.Health Live conference?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it definitely goes down to a really interesting conversation that I heard over and over in sessions in the hallways, throughout the event. And that was actually more talk of the human side. Certainly there was AI throughout. There's no doubt that everyone was wondering about AI and how are you using AI and leveraging it. But within of that, there was just this theme of like, hey, remember, we're talking about humans. We're connecting to humans. Humans are making choices. We need to be human in our marketing. We need to be thoughtful in how we do it. Don't just throw AI slop out there, et cetera, et cetera. So, I was surprised that there was so much talk, and maybe it's because we're so burnt out of AI and kind of the plethora of AI that's out there that we want to connect more as humans. And so that to me felt like a really interesting theme that kind of surprised me that it was so dominant, even though, I mean, for many years we've said, hey, if you want to be unique, be human, because that's one of the most unique things you could do. But it really stood out for me at this event.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree on that point. I think there was so many people who didn't want to talk about AI. They were like, let's talk about something other than AI. Yes, we want to be able to incorporate AI into our, strategy, and we all have to kind of embrace AI and be aware kind of what AI is doing and where it's going. But, I think it was like almost the antithesis of AI. How can we, as John said, as people, as marketers, really put ourselves and our personality and our brains into our marketing work, which was really refreshing to see.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Definitely pick that up from some of the hallway conversations that I think people are kind of burnt out over AI, and especially marketers, just seeing how it dominates the discussions at other conferences and just online. I found, what stood out for me was just how many hugs were happening. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I just noticed it more this year than before, but I just found more people were like hugging and like, shaking hands and just greeting people as friends. I saw a lot more of that type of interaction this year than I had in prior years. I don't know if that means we just had more people who were returning, but also just from the comments online, just seems like even first timers that had come there were really getting into that community feel. So that was what stood out for me, was that community feeling and the, it's kind of that reunion feeling that people are describing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it generally does feel like a reunion. And one of the best things that I love is that you don't have to see these people throughout the year. You can see them once a year at Sway, and you really just kind of pick up where you left off the last time you saw them. So, even though it's a year, or you may see them once or twice a year, but, it's really a special community where you can pick up right where, back where you left off the last time.
I think maybe there were more hugs too, because I think a lot of people are stressed in this current environment with so many people getting laid off and sales cycles being slower and et cetera, et cetera. The number of conferences people have to attend and what they have to choose from, and the number of, AI is great because it can solve a lot of things, but now we have like 100x the tools to consider, and as we're leveraging them in our marketing and communication efforts. So I think maybe that was some of it too, was that we're all under this stress, and many leaders saying, hey, why aren't these sales going through, right? And why, and then you're worried, maybe you lost your compadre, your peer who got fired, and so coming together and being together and giving those hugs to kind of remember, like, why do we do this, and how can we support each other through the challenging times that we're at. I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah, and we got to give a shout out to the folks at Meditech for letting us use that wonderful facility, right? Because that facility lends itself very well to feeling more together, right? Because there is no giant hotel that's attached to it, right? There's no downtown core that you can just walk out and get to. So we were all there all the time. People were doing some work in the various areas, but it just, to me, it made it feel much more together. And to your point, John, maybe I'm wondering, that helped to foster that sense of community a little bit more than some of the other standard venues that we go to, like hotels and so forth.
Yep.
Yeah, and even those spaces too, where people might have been doing work, but I saw a lot of those spaces being taken up by one-on-one conversations by people, which was so incredible to see. So even, those little spaces, people took time to connect, on a personal level in those spaces. So I loved kind of walking around and seeing people having, some really in-depth conversations in those little pockets of seating. But you're right. I think the team, the operations team, the catering team, the AV team, Lauren and her team they were incredible and really made for a seamless event for us. So yeah, special thanks to them for helping us with everything.
Now, each of us had the opportunity to host, an Unconference session, and those for that may not have experienced one of these yet, it's an Unconference is where the people attending that session get to contribute. They get a chance to dictate the topics that are covered. So basically, it's an open discussion where people share their own expertise and their own experiences. So let me start with you, Brittany. From the Unconferences that you were host of, were there any key takeaways or key observations that you made?
Yeah, I think my favorite one was on personal branding. I was looking forward to it, and it was really cool. It was a jam-packed, and it was really cool to see some of the insights that people brought to to that conversation. And the Unconferences are always so great because you get to hear unique pieces from everyone. But it was really interesting how people were talking about personal branding in terms of giving back to their community and goodwill that they can give to their community, which was, such a delight for me to hear. A lot of it was not just showing up on LinkedIn, where yes, of course, that is, a part of personal branding, but it was really giving back to your community, or even just giving back to your community online and showing up for people when they need it. That was, and really kind of building trust within your community. So that was a really big takeaway for me, and was really interesting to kind of talk about and flesh out in that session. I really, really liked it.
And John, what about you? What about one of the Unconferences that you hosted?
Yeah. So the one that was probably most interesting for me was the AEO, GEO, SEO one, where it's like, okay, how do we optimize previously for search engines, now for LLMs? And what was fascinating is the room was pretty packed. I mean, we were in the auditorium, so we were in the biggest room, but it was quite full. There were a lot of people there. But what was hard is not a lot of people had a lot to share. So usually in an unconference, half of the audience is ready to just talk for hours on it, and half of the audience is learning, right? And everyone has something to share. Maybe and then they have questions. But I'd say that, this was kind of a unique unconference for me, because there were a lot of people who were like not participating. And I think, my theory is that it's because they aren't sure what to do. They all want to know how they could influence these LLMs and be, optimized for them. But there wasn't a lot of knowledge of what really works. And we're early in the cycle. And there were, 6 to 10 people who had some really good ideas. So some good ideas were shared. But I'd say there was way more listening than there was sharing, which was somewhat abnormal for me in the unconference. Usually there's a lot of people who want to share a lot of things. In this case, I think there was a lot of interest in how to solve the problem, but maybe not the expertise. And I think that was the other fear from it. It was like, hey, if we do all of this effort to optimize for it, next week, is that all going to change when a new model comes out? And then all our efforts were just thrown away. So I think there was that fear as well. So, I mean, it was a really interesting discussion because there wasn't, the expertise that you would have found usually.
Yeah, I mean, that actually does sound pretty unique, because you're right. At most unconferences, you have a lot of people just clamoring to contribute or to help, guide their fellow unconference attendees. So, wow, that's kind of interesting to hear. For me, it was the AI for marketing operations. It was a very intimate unconference. I mean, intimate, it was like 25, 30 people in the room, but there were some very, very detailed shares from a few members of the audience on how they were using multiple AIs and stitching together cohorts of target audiences, both from a B2C and a B2B standpoint. So we had somebody from Emory talk about, how they use AI for, identifying patient cohorts that they could market to, for things like smoking cessation programs and so forth. And then we had Christina Starr talk about how she basically vibe coded this thing that would pick up buying signals from certain systems that they use, merge it and enhance the data with other systems and databases they have access to, and then run them through automatically run them through campaigns that she had created. And it was incredible, the amount of coordination around 7 or 8 different systems, the CRM, the marketing automation tools. And so a lot of people had questions of how did you do that? Can you share that? But everybody had stories like that to say, oh, I'm using this and that to stitch together things that I would never have been able to do before, because IT would never give me the time, but I just did it. So it was very interesting to see that, marketers are essentially becoming vibe coders in the room.
So much opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I will say one thing. Of course, Shahid was in that session, and he dropped the bomb, because there was a bunch of people who were like, wow, you guys are doing all this great vibe coding. What are you doing it in? And everyone pretty much answered Claude. And so the other half of the room was like, well, I can't get Claude because it's not authorized by IT. And then Shahid dropped the bomb and said, well, if your IT department's preventing you from doing work, then you need to leave that company and leave that organization, because they're not with it. And, but he offered a few tips on how to get the IT group maybe to open that up a little bit, so you can experiment with it, at least, maybe not in full production, but at least experiment and try it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that from a number of people where they're like, "Hey, I use Copilot because it's approved," because Microsoft was approved with the HIPAA enforcements that they wanted. Claude was a little more challenging, but actually, we had some that were Claude, some that were Gemini. So, to your point, you should push that through.
Yeah. Now, kind of since we're on the theme here, were there any other takeaways from an educational standpoint that you heard or that you were part of from either the panels or the other sessions that stood out to you?
Yeah, so I moderated the customer panel, and we had 3 female CIOs. One was a former CIO, but so it was awesome, to hear from them and see their leadership. What was fascinating, going back to the Claude Copilot thing, one had Copilot, one had Claude, I think one had Gemini. So they were using all the different ones depending on what their IT department had approved, which they lead the IT department, which is interesting. But we asked them straight up. We said, "Hey, are you using AI and LLMs to evaluate solutions?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I?" And so they were pretty direct about, hey, the search and the evaluation is being done through these tools, whichever one's approved in their organization. And I don't think they treat it as gospel, right? Like, as I told someone, it's not like someone says, "Give me the best secure text message program for healthcare." And, they're like, "Oh, it's that one. Okay, I'm going to buy it," right? Like, that's not how this works. It's very sophisticated in how they're doing it, but they're discovering products. They're understanding products using the LLM. So that was a big takeaway. The other one related to that is the CIOs, when asked, like, "Hey, what are you reading? What's influencing you?" Of course, they said peers first, right? Whatever their peers say and whatever the peers share. But interesting enough, and kind of related to that same peer idea, they said, "Hey, I'm more likely to read something on social than I am to subscribe to a newsletter or to go to a website regularly." They're like, "I want it to kind of filter up through social." So anyway, which in another way is kind of peers sharing with them what is interesting. So it seems like social was how they got most of their news, or through, the peer threads. I gave them the long list. I said, "Hey, is it text? Is it publications? Is it conferences? Is it, blah, blah, blah." I gave them the list. I said, "Yeah, it's all of those." I was like, okay, so you're getting a plethora of different, influences, to help you discover products or understand products.
Brittany, how about you? Were there any sessions or any other presentations that you had a chance to see or hear about that stood out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that really stood out for me and was Matt Devenier and Sarah Benight's session on failures. I had so many people talk to me about how they loved it, and being able to how refreshing it was to hear leaders openly talk about failure. And I think we've heard this theme before. Success stories are great. But honestly, I think some of the best and most useful stories come from those failure stories. So it was nice to kind of hear what went wrong, what they learned from it, and how that kind of led to some of their innovations in their marketing strategies. So that was really exciting to hear for them. And then, I loved Elena's social media session on how to, earn attention with social media. Her energy in that session was so amazing. And I think she immediately was able to get the room energized and engaged. And you could tell her passion in that subject was just full on. And then obviously the great, practical tactics that she had, and being able to, making sure that everybody had the information that she was trying to get across in that session. So I think, energy really matters in a session, and she absolutely brought it. It was great.
I think the
Nice.
golden line I heard shared from that session is something to the effect of, social media is not meant to drive leads. It's meant to influence the behavior and educate them on your company and your product. It's like, that's what they're reading to learn about you.
That sounds really cool. I'm sorry I missed that one, actually. I heard so much about it. And the one, I did hear a lot about the one from Sarah and Matt as well, and failures. That seemed to be a hit with a lot of people. There were a couple of, what stood out for me from some of the other sessions. First of all, I heard so much about Martha Van Berkel's session about schema. Yeah. And so it's AI adjacent, because it wasn't really about AI, but it was just more preparing for the agentic web and making sure this is how your stuff can get surfaced in an AI LLM engine. And so I heard that session was amazing. She always shares great tips. There was a lot of sessions for me on storytelling. Cameron Kitt, who did the storytelling around film, and kind of like taking a videographer and filmmaker perspective on telling stories, patient stories, and so forth. I thought that one was really good. Lots of really practical tips there. And then the one with Jack Murtha and Tom Castles, just about sharing stories. And it was very powerful because both of them shared very personal stories of how they got into healthcare and their healthcare journeys. And obviously there were some tears. And then they asked the people in the session to share stories amongst themselves. And I'll never forget this one because I ended up with someone who we both happened to be living in Australia at the same time back in the 70s. I mean, what are the odds of that? And then on top of that, she was telling this story about that's when she found out her father worked at the CIA. Was because they were exposed and they had to go into hiding in Australia. And I'm like, what an incredible, this sounds like a Netflix plot here. Like, so, but it just, I think it illustrated the point about the power of stories and how we each have unique ones, and how do you bring that forward in unique kind of ways. So I found that session really, really fun to be part of.
Yeah, I was fascinated by the filming one as well. And she made it a workshop where they would tell stories and learn how to create the story, which was cool. But she also described some really practical details, like what do festivals want? Like, what if you're creating a true short video that you want to give the exposure to a festival? And when she talked about time frame, she's like, yeah, it needs to be within this time period. I think it was like 5 minutes is the sweet spot, right? If it's too long, then they can't fit it into the schedule. If it's too short, well, it's hard to tell a really good story in 2 minutes. So she's like, that sweet spot is in that 5. And it was like really practical insights if you want to tell a story that compelling to, and then festivals need, those films. And so if you do it the right way, you actually could get accepted, which was, eye-opening to me as another channel to get your message out there.
Okay, well, this may become a thing, but it's certainly become a thing for some of the conferences that we go to. But if I asked both of you to pick only one emoji to represent Swaay.Health Live 2026, which emoji would that be?
It's funny because Colin kind of almost stole it by saying what stood out for you at 2026, because I would do the hug emoji, right? It was just like, hugging the community of people, getting a hug, giving hugs, and being able to just feel the warmth of community, whether it's connecting with someone because you're both frustrated with something, whether it's learning from each other, whether it's connecting to someone who can connect you to, another resource, like all of that, hopefully feels like a warm hug. I'm interested to know if some people didn't feel that way, because I'd love to hear from them and see how we could do better. But yeah, I would have used the hug emoji.
All right, hug emoji. Brittany, what about you? What emoji would you use?
Yeah, I think all of those, like John said, the hands and the heart, the hug emoji. But I also think I would say the magic wand emoji, because I think Swaay has a certain kind of magic to it. I think we plan all the sessions and the logistics and things behind the scenes, and those are all kind of planned. But I think the things that are, the most unique and magical are the ones that those moments you can't, manufacture on your own. They're like like we said, the hallway conversations, people reconnecting, like we said, no time has passed, those vulnerable stories that you said, Colin, that people share that you don't expect, the ideas that kind of come out of those spontaneous discussions. I think that is magic, and you can't really plan for that. So I would say magic one.
And it was magical that Brittany actually got on stage, got the mic, and did some, work on the stage. So anyone listening, if you want Brittany on stage more, let us know in the comments, and let us know so we can get her on stage more. I think that would be a good, let us know. I'm pretty sure I know where the fans are.
For me, I'm going to pick a couple. I mean, I agree totally with both of you. I would have picked actually probably both of those, but I would just to be different. I would pick a bowling ball because the social event that we held, I think everyone loved it. Anyone who went there, people enjoyed the bowling, but they also enjoyed the golf. They just enjoyed hanging around. There was enough variety that you could do some things, and the food was great. And it was just another opportunity to hug and to connect and to experience that magic. And so I thought that one was really good. I would also say, the hot seat. I don't know if there's such a thing as a hot seat emoji, but I think that was Brittany's idea. So all credit goes to Brittany for kind of organizing that one. But that sort of fun event where people asked questions of each other and we got to know each other in a different kind of way. I thought that was pretty memorable, and a lot of people who were there really thought it was kind of unique and special, and so I like that. That was a really fun one. So I would pick either of those two emojis for me.
I'm glad you brought that up, Colin, because I wanted to say this during our discussion and I haven't, but I think it was very cool that, I think there was some kind of, corporate questions that came out of there. But what my favorite was the personal questions and the stories that came out of some of the questions. And, those, I never knew that about someone. So I think that was kind of the impetus, we want some interesting and unique questions, but also having those personal stories come out of a session like that is such a cool thing to see. So I love that part of it.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was so funny because I had this one guy, I forget his name, I apologize, who came up to me right at the end and goes, "You remember that question about the mantis shrimp?" And I was like, "Yeah, I remember that question." He goes, "I actually know about mantis shrimp. I actually studied them." And I was like, "What are the odds that you would know that?" but just fun. But he went over, but that became something, a connection, right? Because he knew about that and was able to connect with that person who asked that question later on at the social event. So that was kind of fun. So let me ask this last question to both of you. Was there any part of Swaay.Health 26 that you're thinking we could do better and improve on in 27?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we talked about it being a reunion, and I've heard a lot of people say that in their write-ups and different things like that. For me, the question is always like, what does that feel like if you're new to the family? And we had, Alex wrote up a really vulnerable write-up about his first time attending last year. He decided to kind of not connect and not engage. The excuse was his work and his laptop, right? And that's how he avoided connecting, I guess, in many ways. And I'm sure, and he didn't say this, but I'm sure this is true for a lot of people, where it's like, hey, it looks like a clique, and like, how do I get into the clique, not a reunion? So I'm always curious about better ways we can do for new people. I mean, we do the first time attending meetup where we say, hey, the goal is to meet 10, 15 people. So it changes your experience. And I think it's true. We see that, from a lot of different people, and we hear that. But Alex described it perfectly. He's like, I was afraid to go up because they seemed like they all knew each other. He's like, but once I did, I realized, it's not that they are being exclusive and trying to exclude me. It's just that they know each other and enjoy each other, and they're happy to include me. And so, I've been pondering that, and like, how can we better ensure that someone new to the community understands that and that they feel that they're part of it rather than, hey, I'm not part of the clique, right? Which can be, a bad experience. So anyway, I think that's what I'm pondering, is more ways that we can make sure that people feel part of the family, not like, what am I doing at this reunion? I'm not, I'm not part of the crew, and I don't feel good. So I'd say that's one way, I can always work on to say, make sure that whoever comes has a good experience, is connected to people.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there is, certain elements that we can maybe, switch to or fine tune to do that. Cause I think it's super important, John. And one of the things that I was thinking about that kind of leans into that a little bit is, what I think we've talked about it is maybe doing something like a community building activity together, or giving back component together on a smaller level than our social event, which really roots connection in smaller groups with people, maybe in a shared experience. So it allows them to kind of build something together and build relationships in a way that feels maybe natural and a little more intimate. So maybe something we can, is what I was thinking, maybe something we could do in smaller groups with people, new people and veterans, that's like giving back to the community.
Yeah, someone suggested we should do it as a pre-conference, like almost like a marketing communications hackathon, where they work together to, work on, I'd love to do nonprofits or something like that, right? Yeah. Where, like you said, they're connecting together and using their skills, but then you see each other use each other's skills and you connect in a different way. Yeah. That'd be cool.
I
Those
love
are
that.
all great ideas. We should look at those for 27. To kind of lean into what both of you had said, one of the things I saw that we could maybe facilitate more in future Sway conferences is, just connecting people on that open night, where, because it's an open night that's meant for people to just self-organize a dinner or a gathering. And it did spontaneously happen. There were a few that happened, but could we do something more akin to what we did that I did with the crew from Webless, right? Where he made an offer to say, hey, I would love to have some people join me for dinner. And so we just did a quick announcement in the session I was in. It's like, hey, anyone who hasn't got any dinner plans with anybody else, well, here's one, right? And it's open to anybody to come. And we got 10 people to join up that didn't know each other, and they had a wonderful dinner. But can we facilitate that a little bit more to your point, John, to break down that wall a little bit for people who may be a little bit scared to do that when they see everyone talking together? I would also say that we got to find more opportunity to get Brittany on stage. I think that's definitely something we can improve for future Sways.
Everyone wants that.
That's really good. And this was an idea that kind of, I don't know who came up with it. I was standing in a group and we kind of maybe came up with it together, but there was a thought of making the first day of the event, whatever day one is, like that's the pink and purple day. so that we all wear pink or purple, because it just so happened that kind of happened on the Wednesday. A lot of people were wearing pink and purple. But maybe if we kind of made that official, that might be kind of fun to see the creativity come out in that side of things. So
it's like Mean Girls. On Wednesday, we wear pink.
There you go. There you go. So, except John, because he has to wear salmon. He's the only exception.
I mean, I would love to see John in hot pink pants. That is, that's a dream for me.
I got the pink shirt, That's good.
Well, all right. Well, I think we're at the end, but thank you to both of you for joining the program and talking about Swaay.Health Live 2026. Can't wait to do this again in a year at the Swaay 2027. But thanks a lot.
Thanks, Colin. And thanks to all the community. It's great that we have their support and that they're sharing it with others and peers. And, it's always heartening when someone says, why wasn't I there? Or even more so, we had a lot of people who came for the first time that we've been bugging for, 5 or 10 years. And they're like, geez, why didn't I come earlier? So that's always heartening. And then maybe the best story of all was someone said, I'm an introvert. And I went and I still added 75 connections. It's like, what? So, thanks to the community for making it special.
One of the things I love is how many different perspectives and takeaways there are from people who attend the same event. I loved hearing Brittany and John's takeaways from the sessions that they led and from the people they spoke to. I especially loved John's suggestion on how we can do more to engage first-time attendees so that our event doesn't end up just being a clique where people just get together and don't welcome newcomers. I also loved Brittany's suggestion on extending the hot seat shuffle. It was a fantastic format that she came up with, and I'm hoping that we can extend that for 2027. I hope any of you watching this video will join us for Swaay.Health Live 2027. And thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video. We'd really appreciate it if you could mash that like button and click subscribe. Also, head over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you will find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Swaay.Health.